In early 1861, the institution of slavery was intact. The U.S. government didn't even have a policy in place for how to handle enslaved people who came into Union lines. At the beginning of the war, they really didn't even have a policy in place. By 1864, the institution of slavery in Spotsylvania County, where about 60% of the residents of the county in 1860 were enslaved, the institution of slavery was virtually dead. More than three-quarters, or about three-quarters of enslaved people in Spotsylvania County had left the county by 1864, most of them heading into Union lines. Just weeks before the armies clashed in the wilderness, the Senate passed the 13th Amendment on its way to ratification the next year. The federal government had gone from 8 decades of sustaining the institution of slavery to abolishing it. Every Union soldier, now here's a tough subject. People, we run into this. I worked at the park, we ran into this all the time. Every Union soldier who marched into the wilderness, into Spotsylvania, in May of 1864, marched to end slavery. Now, that doesn't mean they were motivated by it. Doesn't even mean they agreed to the idea. But it does mean it was the policy of the nation that they served, that slavery would end by 1864. Some of those soldiers embraced the change. Others rejected it, but the change remained regardless. In 1861, civilians turned out to watch battles, and even into 1862. Famously at First Manassas, of course, they had come out. Now Southern civilians fled the approach of armies, and Northern civilians had given up their war-watching ways, although we, of our generation, would resume those war-watching ways from our living rooms, ultimately. In 1861, the Union Army, in its advance to Manassas, left behind, because it felt like it had too much baggage, left behind its medical wagons. In 1864, the federal government and civilians mobilized what may have been the largest relief effort in American history to that time. As 40,000 men fell wounded on these fields, and of those that fell who were Union soldiers, most of them passed through Fredericksburg into the arms of probably more than 500 or 600 civilians, mostly, who came to help. In 1861, 62, 1863, soldiers might have actually been under fire in a given year for 8 hours. When you calculate all the time throughout the year, actually under fire maybe 8 hours, maybe 10 hours. By 1864, they would be under fire here for more than 8 hours a day, oftentimes. In 1861, and maybe this is the most important thing, in 1861, victory always seemed one victory away. Ultimate victory seemed just one battle away. Now, that thought never entirely went away. The soldiers who marched into the wilderness, be they coming from Orange County or from Culpeper, all hoped that whatever happened there would end the war. But they knew by then that even the most resounding victories could only move the needle slightly. That this war and its outcome would be determined not just by what happened on these battlefields, but by what happened across 2,000 miles of front in a war that affected civilians and soldiers and institutions in dramatic ways. And would be determined by the cumulative effort of armies across most of the nation. And it would be determined by how that war was waged. Policies that damaged the South's ability to support its army in the field.